Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend, mentor, coach, and just all around good guy, John Opalewski. How are you today, John?
Hey, hey, Jim, I'm doing better. Those are a nice string of compliments that you just gave me. I'm feeling a lot better about myself.
Good.
But doing good. We got to spend 15 minutes visiting and reflecting on a conference
Yeah.
that we got to spend some time together at and just reminiscing about that, how much fun it was, and interacting with a lot of people that we love and care
That's
about.
good.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it was really good. And so I'm in a good spot today.
Good. Good. It does my heart good to be with people, the people
Hmm.
I care about and I love, people that don't need anything from you, people that you're not their
Yeah.
boss, you're not their employee, you're just their brother, their friend. I loved it too. My soul's full. Right on. Well, speaking of friends, introduce us to our topic today for episode was it 225, right?
U25, yeah, the ubiquitous need for friendship. And as we were talking before we hit the record button, you asked me what that word meant, and
Yes.
it just means all-encompassing.
Yeah.
And I could have said it probably differently, but I love that word. I like saying that word.
I like saying that word.
Fun word.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Universal. The
there you
universal,
go.
right? Yeah.
You got it.
Friendship. It's huge.
Yeah, we've been talking almost exclusively this year on the podcast about whole person well-being.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it in this way, Jim. We've talked about it in terms of obedience versus preference.
Hmm.
We talked about developing a responsible relationship with ourself. I discovered, and maybe you already knew this, but back in the fall of 2023, I discovered this new rhythm that's really important. It's not a new rhythm, it was just kind of brought back to the center of my
Yeah.
focus, and that's this rhythm of our capacity and the demand on that capacity.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's one of those rhythms that's harder to quantify. You have to pay a lot closer attention to it. And yet if we don't steward that well, we can find ourselves running on empty, being depleted. So today
Right.
I'd like us to continue talking about whole person health by exploring this universal need for friendship. In
Yeah.
Genesis 2:18, we read these words, "It is not good for the man to be alone." God spoke
Yeah.
those words about Adam. And this was before the fall. And
Right.
we all know, well, maybe we don't all know, but most of us know that before the fall, Adam had this unhindered relationship with God. He had the
Yeah.
perfect job, he had the perfect place to live. He
Yeah.
didn't have any sickness, any of that physical.
Right.
I believe probably no mental or emotional
Right.
deficiency,
Yeah.
or I mean,
There's no IRS. There's no Ohio State football. There's no, right. There's no mother-in-laws. It literally is heaven on earth. Yeah.
yes. And in the some of our listeners are Ohio State fans, so no offense, Matt,
Oh,
but
oh,
that's
well,
okay.
we can have an altar call at the end of this if you want. We can. sorry, sorry. It's just a reflex.
So in the middle of that perfection, God saw that Adam needed another human
Yeah,
to do life with.
yeah,
And I've noticed that when leaders get busy with work, friendship seems to take a back seat.
yeah,
I know that's true for me, Jim, and I know it's unhealthy for me.
yeah,
It feels like that's the first thing off the list when my schedule gets out of control. Oh, I just
yeah,
delay. I'll meet with
yeah,
that person, this friend, in a
yeah,
couple of weeks, and a couple of weeks sometimes extends. And I've come to this conclusion that friendship is not optional. It's not
mm,
a luxury. It's not I'll get around to it when life settles down type of
yeah,
thing. It is
yeah,
absolutely essential. It is like food and water
yeah,
to our physical body.
yes,
Friendship is that to our mental and emotional well-being.
yeah,
And when you study the life of Paul, you know, you if you you'll notice he had friends in the
Yeah.
churches he served. Romans 16 is a laundry list
Yeah.
of friends. I mean, he uses phrases like Epinetus, my dear friend, and
Mm.
Stachys, my dear friend. And he
Yeah.
has this list of people
Yeah.
that are he's relationally connected to.
Mm.
I mean, even Jesus said to the 12 guys following him in John 15, I call you friends. So just give me a little bit of feedback, and then I'd like to get
Yeah.
a little bit about what kind of gets in the way of friendship. But I'd like to just hear your initial thoughts, Jim.
Yeah. Little known fact about my life. Part of what I was trained to do and did in the military was to interrogate prisoners. So that's something I don't talk about very often for obvious reasons. But one of the quickest ways to break somebody down is to isolate them, leave
Mm,
them alone in silence with their thoughts. The Supreme Court has ruled that solitary confinement, unless there's certain conditions met for the prisoner's safety or other prisoner's safety, is a form of torture. It is not allowed.
mm.
It's called cruel and unusual punishment. If you ever watch
Right.
these shows where people go off into the Arctic to survive by themselves as long as they can, what is it that breaks them? It's often not a loss of shelter, a loss of food. It's they can't function anymore alone. They talk to the camera as if it's a friend. Why do we have a volleyball with a bloody handprint on it named Wilson?
Yeah.
We are created for community, and outside of community, it seems we need the voices beyond the voices in our heads. And even like you said, with Adam alone with God and God's voice in his head, God still said there's something missing. And maybe it's not. Maybe in that instance, it's not that Adam was incomplete, but that he was so complete that he needed someone to give himself to.
Mm,
That was the pain. I want someone else to share my life with, and there's no one
mhm.
to share my life with, and God says that's not good. So whether it's on the
Yeah.
negative end of that or the positive end of that, the result is the same. We need friendship. We need fellowship, relationship. We are wired for it, and we break down emotionally, physically, and spiritually without it.
That's right. The Surgeon General came out, and this report I think was about a year ago that isolation, loneliness. She used the word loneliness. Loneliness has the same impact on your health as a 15 cigarette a day habit,
Yeah, no doubt.
your longevity.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a serious issue. I think in ministry, it gets ratcheted up more, the
yeah,
challenge of it, especially in the lead pastor role. We at the conference we were at, the guest speaker, the main speaker said, when I was an associate pastor, everybody loved me. I was everybody's friend.
yeah,
And
yeah,
when I became a
yeah,
lead pastor, man, things changed quickly, and that
yeah,
was my experience
yeah,
as well. And I
yeah,
most of the guys and gals that are leading in that capacity, when we have this conversation, I said, "Oh yeah,
yeah,
something shifted, and now isolation became a real issue
yeah.
for me." So I'd like to talk a little bit about what gets in our way, Jim, as leaders, in regards to friendship. I think I have three or four things here. The first one is fear,
Mhm.
I believe. Fear of being known, fear of if I'm known, then I'll get burned.
Yeah,
Uh, but I think it goes beyond that. I think sometimes it's fear we won't get all our work done, fear that we're wasting time. I
yeah,
and I could go on and on there. I know this, that every relationship has risk associated with it, but I would argue that isolating ourselves carries risk as well, and probably more
more.
risk.
Yeah, yeah,
So our purpose, in life is intertwined with people. And I would say this, if you get all your work done, but you live in a relational desert, I don't think you're going to get to where God wants you to go.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
not going to get to where God wants you to go in your personal life without friendship. I
yeah.
would I would argue you're not going to get to where God wants you to go in your professional life
Yes, absolutely.
without friendship. What do you think about this first barrier, Jim, of fear?
Yeah. One of the things I missed out on that's fairly common in my peers is Bible college. I went to a 1-year discipleship program called Master's Commission in Phoenix. And we form
Hmm.
those relationships, but what you form in a year is not what you form in 4 years. And it
Mm,
really became a handicap because,
there you
it's
go.
time to find a position or time to speak for the first time someplace, or, people that went to college just had that multi-year connection,
Hmm.
where they knew each other well, they believed in each other, they gave each other opportunities. And I really, as an outsider, had to kind of find my way in as a youth pastor. As a senior pastor, I've been around long enough to do that, but it was I really envied that. Remember the time, and they'd all start laughing, and I had no stories to associate with that. And
Right.
yeah, I agree. I think that I'm dealing specifically with our professional career. There are people that open doors for you, and I don't mean that in like an ambitious way, like we should use
Right.
people to go where we want, but friends open doors for friends. Friends buy each other lunch. Friends believe in each other's dreams. Friends partner up with other
That's right.
people, and it's collegial. It's a cohort of believers
Hmm.
believing, and
Yeah.
to some degree, I think there's even a friendly competition in that. And if
Mm,
one of us falls down and gets bloody, they'll warn the rest of us where not to trip.
yeah.
It's you do life together, life is better. You do life on your own, you're hiding from something, you're hiding from someone. But that
Mm,
you talked about fear, but I tell you what, the outcome is certain if you isolate yourself. The outcome is unknown if you connect yourself. You may get hurt, but you may not. I've been blessed by
mm,
far more friends that I've been hurt by, and
yeah.
I run the
Me
risk with
too.
all of them. But I will
Me too.
always be lonely if I remain alone. And I may get
Yeah.
hurt if I don't remain alone, but far more often than not, I'm not hurt by my friends. I'm tremendously blessed by my friends. It's
Right.
ubiquitous. It's almost
There
ubiquitous.
you go. See, you're gonna love that word now. You're gonna use that all the time. Uh, the speaker at this conference you and I were at said this phrase often, you need a band of brothers
And a
or
brothers.
in a band of or a band of sisters if you're a female. And so I think overcoming that reluctance, overcoming the thought patterns that are telling you this is dangerous, this is you can't do this, they won't. If people really
Yeah.
knew who you were, they won't love you, they won't like you. And man, I'll tell you what, that is from the devil himself.
Yeah.
So I think fear gets in our way, Jim. Busyness gets in our ways. That's the
Yeah.
second one.
Yeah.
I think um, leaders, most leaders, not all leaders, but most leaders have too much going on in their
Yeah.
work world,
Yeah.
and their discretionary time is very low. And when they think about, man, I got to carve time out of all of that to nurture friendships, I mean, they think, "Well, where am I going to get that time? How am I going to
Yeah.
how am I going to make that work?" And I remember as a busy college student, I went to a school where it was a demanding school, Jim. I mean, I was
Yeah.
studying, and this is not meant to brag at all. I'm just reporting the news
Yeah.
that on top of class, I was studying 40 to 50 hours a week.
Wow.
I mean, that's how hard this school was.
Right.
And and I remember being tempted at times to skip my time with the Lord.
Yeah.
And and uh and I found out that when I resisted that temptation, that hardly ever happened. I mean, I think I was able to resist that temptation, but the thought crossed my mind, I got so much work today, I don't have time to spend with the Lord. I found that when I spent
Yeah.
time with the Lord, somehow or another, He multiplied that time back to me
Yeah.
and helped me to learn faster, and it was more
Yeah.
productive. I would argue friendship is very similar to that. We
Yeah.
think, I don't have enough time. I'm so busy. How can I squeeze this in? And what I would suggest to you is that if you prioritize friendship, you're busy, you're going to be sharper. You're going to have more juice
Yeah.
in order to apply to what you've got on your calendar. What do you think about that thought or that
I,
idea?
I agree. And I think, the book Atomic Habits talks about habit
Mm,
stacking. So let's say, man, I could go to the
yeah,
hospital and visit this guy today. I got it. Well, take a friend with you. If there's anything better than being visited in the
beautiful.
hospital by your pastor, it's by your pastor and one of the deacons, or a
Yeah.
pastor and another friend. It's to go do life by yourself because you have all this to do, I find that it's better that if you take someone with you. I never go to a conference without somebody. I never go to a speaking engagement without somebody, because that driving to wherever I'm driving to, it's better with a friend than it is alone. And
Yeah.
being there and sharing that experience and coming back again and kind of reviewing that experience. It's just, who goes to eat at a restaurant by themselves? Who goes to a movie by themselves or a sporting event by themselves? And because ministry is a joy so often, not always, but visiting somebody in the hospital and praying with them, that's a joy to me. That's a
Hmm.
privilege. I love that. I don't know if they're in the hospital, but I love that I got to visit them in the hospital. Why would you not want to share
Right.
that event with somebody, especially maybe if it's a younger person that has ministry in them? You know what an honor that is to be included in a ministry trip with their
Sure.
pastor to go pray for somebody. You'll never preach a sermon more powerful than the time you spend with a young person that feels they have a call to ministry in their life, and you visit with them and said, and hey Jim, why don't you pray? Well, they're 20 years old and they pray their first prayer out loud for Sister Coleslaw. That's
Yeah.
wonderful, man. That's a great moment. So I don't think we have to do everything we have to do alone. I think
That's
some of
good.
it will be so much better done with somebody that we're mentoring or discipling or just enjoying.
And I think that that's just such a brilliant idea, Jim. That
Mm.
that takes some of the pressure off, right?
Yeah,
Like you can exercise. Bring one of your buddies to the gym
yeah,
with you. So incorporate friendship. I remember doing that when I was a youth pastor. We had 3 kids in the youth group that
yeah.
liked to lift weights, and I loved to lift weights. And and we would 3 times a week, we'd lift for an hour and a half. And
Wow.
yeah, the lifting was fun, but the laughter and
Yeah,
the things that we talked about, it got sometimes it was funny and laughter, sometimes it was deep. But that's
yeah,
such a great idea, Jim, that we can combine, like we
yeah,
can stack those habits. That's really
yeah.
good. I appreciate you bringing that up. Here's the third thing I think gets in the way, and that's impatience. You kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. I think that deep friendship is cultivated by regular interaction over a long period of time.
Mhm. Yeah.
Most of the time, it builds slowly. It's and the rewards are not immediate. And so I think at times we have this nagging feeling: is friendship w- worth the effort it takes? Because I don't
Hmm.
always see results right away. It's like
Yeah.
we talk about a farmer never expects to plant on one day and reap the
Yeah.
next, and I
Yeah.
think friendship is like that, especially deep friendship.
Yeah.
Um, I believe this, that we'll climb as high in life as the depth of our relationships.
It's good.
And so
Yeah.
it requires friendship requires patience. Now,
Yeah.
I our listeners and watchers might be thinking, well, John and Jim, why should I really care about this? I mean, I've gotten this far in life without friends. And I actually had someone tell me that one time, Jim.
Yeah.
I mean, and they were just matter of fact. I've gotten this far in life without friends.
Yeah.
Um, which scared me for this
Yeah.
individual
Yeah.
uh first. And then I started to unpack that and I think, wait a minute, that can't be true.
Yeah.
That can't be true. Maybe he
Yeah.
forgot. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I'd like to give a couple of reasons why I think our listeners and watchers should care. Is that, first of all, friendship will significantly impact your health.
Yeah.
Friendships keep you emotionally full. Friends can celebrate victories
Yeah.
with you and help bear your burdens. A shared win is multiplied. A shared burden is automatically cut in half. Um, Mayo Clinic did a research study, and I think this is a couple years old now, Jim, and they discovered this, that good friendship can actually extend your lifespan.
Hmm.
And they think the reason why is that healthy friendships help your body process stress.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, so that was interesting to me, that I think that's a reason you should care about it. And then the other reason I think you should care about it is that healthy friendships keep you safe.
Mm. Yeah.
they protect us from lying to ourselves.
Mm.
They keep us safe from the devil's diabolical plan to isolate us and take
Yeah.
us out. God's got a great plan for your life, a wonderful plan for your life. And the devil has a less than wonderful plan for your life, but it's
Yeah.
every bit as calculated, and that
Yeah.
is to isolate you and destroy you. I believe
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
I hope that gives you enough. I don't know what you think about those two reasons, Jim, but I hope that gives enough. Like, wow, I should really pay attention to this. It's important. What
Yeah.
do you think?
Yeah. You talk about the plan the devil has. We're not ignorant of the devil's schemes.
Yeah,
And the word schemes is schematos. I might be able to pronounce that wrong, but we get our words schematic. It is a detailed, from beginning to end plan to destroy your life. There's this, but
yeah,
I love the writer says we're not ignorant. We know what it is. And
yeah,
from right there in the first part of the first book of the first story of mankind, everybody that's alone has a problem. We put them in community. That's from the very beginning. So there is really the guy that said I got here without having any friends. I think my next question would be, who hurt you, man? Do you believe that? Who
yeah,
hurt you? That you cannot arrive at an not just not biblical, an anti-biblical conclusion by having reasoned your way to make something totally wrong into something you'd believe to be a strength of yours. It's
yeah,
not true. Who hurt you? Let's figure that out, and then we'll see if we can't rebuild some trust for humanity. But I go back to the thought I had never eaten ice cream by myself. I don't want to watch a sporting event alone. Get a ticket and go to a game. Like the best things in life are always shared. The difference between
yeah,
clothes shopping and Christmas morning is giving somebody something and watching the look on their face. We're wired, as you said, to carry each other's burdens, to rejoice with those who rejoice, to mourn with those who mourn. And outside of that, we are far, far, far from the programming God has put in our DNA. So I enjoy friendship probably as much or more as anybody I know. I love, like you just said, we came back from this retreat. So what was the best thing that happened at the retreat? Wonderful speaker, fantastic worship. But the people
yeah.
would be my number by far and away. The number one thing I got out of that is I got to see old friends and we got to reconnect and play with each other's kids and see how
Hmm.
everybody got fat and bald and gray. And it's just wonderful to be in the same room because we're all fighting the same fight in different boxing rings. But man, to come together, it's just so wonderful. So I heartily amen this. We all need friends. We all need to be good friends to the people we have. So maybe the homework assignment is reach out to two or three people and tell them you love them. See if that doesn't start a conversation or a lunch
Yeah,
date or a phone conversation that'll enrich your life. Quit smoking
yeah,
15 cigarettes a day, by being alone, you know.
yeah.
And if you're isolated, I promise you right now, you're breaking down. I promise you, it is biology.
Hmm.
It is literally hardwired. If you are isolated right now, you are breaking down to one form or another. So
Yes.
you put yourself in the cell. You have the key. You can get out, and
Yeah.
you can do that pretty simply by reaching out to some friends today.
And I love it. And I can hear in the back of my mind some guys objecting, some gals objecting. So I don't have anybody that I can do that with. And I would just say to you, get on your knees and ask God to give you friends.
Yeah,
He knows you need them. That's a prayer God is going to answer
yeah,
affirmatively, because He knows you need that. That's not a luxury. It's not a want. It's a need.
yeah,
And then get intentional. I think friendship sometimes happens accidentally, but hardly ever.
yeah.
Um, create space on your calendar. I have to do that, Jim. I block out
Yes,
friend appointments.
yeah.
I mean, if you like to golf, join a golf league. If you like to bowl, I guess people still bowl, right?
Do they?
Do people do that? I think so. I still
I don't
see
know.
bowling alleys around.
Yeah,
Um, do Habitat for Humanity project. Get intentional. If you live in a small town, friendship might be waiting for you in another town.
yeah,
It might be. And let me one last thought, Jim, and I'd like you to wrap this up. Friendship's not a matter of choice; it's a matter of obedience. I want to bring it down to that
yeah,
level.
yeah,
It's a matter of obedience, and uh, and so we urge you to pay attention to your ubiquitous need for friendship.
yeah, yeah. I love it. Well, I love that you facilitate huddles so people can become friends. You are a
Yeah.
good friend, John. We started our friendship. I was one of your clients. You were my coach.
Hmm.
It's a treasure now. Our friendship to both of us, I believe,
To me, it
it's a
is.
gift from
Yep.
God. I wrote something down the other day talking about, making sure that these people have a place in my life. And yours was one of the five names on
Mm.
that list, like
Thank you.
always, because if people have to be close enough to you, you talk about protecting us. Like if you can't correct me, you can't protect me. If I'm this
Mm.
guy on the stage and I'm this voice and I'm this face and I'm this, you know what I mean? But we need people to say, hey, you got a little something right here, and then we'll lick their finger and get it off for you. Almost that
Yeah.
much. That's where we prosper. We grew the most when we were children and families. And we'll grow the most as men and as women when we're, men and women and families. That's what we need.
Yeah.
So God gives us friends that are sometimes even closer than our biological families, and
That's right.
those are gifts. So, thanks for being a gift. And I would say this to those that are watching and listening as we close up our time today. Again, it's sometimes the Bible says if you want to have friends, there's a formula for that. Here it is. You ready? Be friendly.
Yeah.
So start the conversation. Invite the lunch. I'll see you at the coffee house. Go to the group. Be a part of the retreat. You're part of a
Yeah.
cooperative fellowship. Cooperate. Fellowship. These are that's what we're here to do, is to facilitate these things and converge. Maybe you're like, I did that and I got hurt and I don't know how to get out of that cycle of doubt or
Mm.
fear. Like Converge can help. We can coach
Yeah.
you through that. And I'll be honest with you. If you don't have a single friend, somebody said this the other day, I don't want to have I don't want to pay a counselor $100 an hour to be my friend. A good counselor, though, should teach you how to be a good friend and lead you towards those relationships. So if we're
Right.
in this position where you're like, I just don't have any friends, give us a call. It's a half hour, it's free. And we'd love to have that conversation with you to kind of begin I think we'll ask you some questions that you can answer and begin your journey in this area.
Yeah.
But it's so important. And we would love to invest that time. So God bless you, our dear watchers and listeners. Convergecoach.com. There's the connect link. Hit it, and we'll
Yeah.
be on the phone with you, us, them, somebody soon. One of the members of the team will be reach out to you real quick. And we love you. God bless you. Keep going as you continue to lead from alignment.